I know what it is we will do next. We will be doing the Italian festival next. Or in other words, La Festa Italiano. Which means we are now going to head up to Italy for the car we will be using. And after giving this much consideration and thought, I've decided that the best car for me to use is probably going to be from Alfa Romeo. So I've decided, out of all these, we do have some pretty pricey choices here, but the cheapest of those is the Alfa Romeo GT V6. So that's what we're going to use, and in terms of the colour I will use for this, typically if I was going to be Italian I would use red, but since I've already driven a red car with my Audi S4, I think I'm going to drive this thing in... I could drive it in black. But I think I'll drive it in this, because it's the sort of colour that almost no one else would expect me to use. But anyway, that's what we're using. The Alfa Romeo GT V6. And I figured I'd choose this colour because, well, nobody else would really think about choosing this colour. Because why not? Azzurro Nuvola Iridescente. I hope I said that right. Anyway, it is time now to once again cue the music as we tune this thing up and customize it. Anyways, yeah. Time now to cue the music. So we have now done pretty much all the tuning I believe we need to do to this thing. I don't think we'll need a semi-racing exhaust. We've pretty much got about as much power as we need, but as ever, we've pretty much done all the tuning we need to do. Plus I did put on 2 stages of weight reduction as well to make the car easier to drive. So, hopefully that's everything. Although, just to be safe, I will get the Grippier Sport soft tyres on standby. Okay. Now that that's all done, I think the only other thing I can really do now, because I want to do this, and because I haven't done this to a manufacturer, And because I haven't done this from well, I guess you could say a new car manufacturer yet, I figured now was... Excuse me, I just sneezed. Anyway, I'm gonna put on a wing, because I can. And before we move on, I'm also gonna put on something interesting on... Yeah, it's Italian, let's go with Speedline. And I will go with... let's see... got a lot of white rims here. You know what, I'll choose these. Fuck it, these work. Okay, I think that's everything now. So, let's now head up to the European events to get down to business. As we now commence La Festa Italiano, a 3-race, single-race series, unmodified cars only. Fortunately, this car is unmodified because it's a production car. And we are doing 2 laps of Autumn Ring, 2 laps of Monaco, and 2 laps of Sonoma. I think we should be okay for this one, from what I can see. Oh wait, hold on. Hold on, I just remembered I also did this sort of thing to my Dodge SRT4 before as well. Anyway, you know, you get the point. So for our first race, we've got 4 Alfa Romeos. I'm really not surprised. And we also get a Lancia Delta and a Fiat Coupe Turbo Plus. Or Fiat Coupe Turbo Plus. Pretty much done about as much tuning as I can do to this thing. So here's to hoping everything holds up. And as ever, I do have the grippier Sport soft tyres just in case. I did make sure to do my fair share of tuning to this thing to make it eligible, so hopefully we should be okay with this. But let's go for 2 laps of Autumn Ring Reverse. And hope that, for want of a better phrase, the car holds up. And it looks like it just might hold up. Even though it did just run wide on the exit of that corner there, but I am convinced in saying we have managed to do enough tuning at least to limit the understeer we might be getting from the car, because after all this is technically a hot hatch, but I think we should be okay with this. As I already move up into P4 and getting some wheel spin. Getting plenty of wheel spin, in fact, from the front tyres. I think with the tuning I've done to this thing, this should be pretty easy for me to pull off. But again, as ever, I'm not taking any chances. Because again, these are only 2-lap events. And there is a reason, of course, why I did technically trick this thing out the way I did. And now the Delta moves up into second. Well, actually, just to correct myself from earlier on, there's a few cars where I did both the rims and also the wings, because I did the sort of thing with my Subaru Sportswagen, and I also did the same thing again on my Dodge SRT4. 2 cars which I did use and ironically win with. Oh, yeah, I'm out. Okay. I almost spun out there, but able to get it back again. In spite of there being a ton of oversteer. And short shifting into fourth because that wheel spin could be costly if I don't control it. And looks as though it's going to be a case of me and the Lancia duking this one out. And yes, I figured it was necessary for me to at least make this easy enough for me to try to get to clean sweep. Unlike some of the events I've done up to this point, which have actually been pretty hard. Can I get past the Lancia? I do wonder that sometimes. He goes wide, I go deep, and that's handed me the win, by default. And the rest of the field, they are nowhere near us. So race 1 is mine, in La Festa Italiano. Over the Lancia Delta and the Alfa Romeo 166. And the other Alfa GT finished P4. Also, everyone finished, which is something else of note. But either way, $5,000 for winning. It was probably easier than what the Delta times made it out to be, but either way, a win's a win, and obviously we got it done. Now let's move on to Monaco. So we pretty much have the same field again mostly, except for saying that the other Alfa Romeo GT we had in the field isn't here again. But either way, we got 4 Alfa Romeos, 1 Fiat, and also 1 Lancia. Let's go out and probably put on a clinical performance here as well. Ordinarily, without the modifications I made, this would have probably been a ballbuster. But I figured this time around, because I've already had enough of that ball-busting racing up to this point with some of these races that I've already done, I figured this time around I would be a step ahead of the AI. And there is a reason why I did 2 stages of weight reduction, not 1. And I figured the reason for that as well because I at least wanted the car to not be basically just, you know, well, understeery as fuck, like the Dodge SRT4 was. Because I dealt with a lot of understeer in that Dodge. Not to say it wasn't a good car, but I just really wasn't a fan of the amount of oversteer I got from the car. I'm still getting understeer. I do apologise if I said oversteer. It's understeer. Anyways, through Portier, and now looking to pass the 166 as we get through the tunnel. And I have now cleared him. As we're now down into the chicane, as we're now onto the Harbour Strait, heading past a luxury yacht in the process, a few luxury yachts actually, and now through to back and down into the swimming pool section, the bus stop, and I went too deep on that corner entry. Still getting my fair share of understeer from the car because, well, the front tyres are taking their fair share of damage here. But at this time, I think we should be fine. The way we're currently schmoovin'. We're very much churning away from the AI, if I do say so myself. I also have an itch on the right side of my nose, but I'm not gonna deal with it until I am done here. So now, heading through Casino Square, and down the hill into Mirabeau, keeping this thing in third gear because that's more or less the best way to control this thing. And now, through Lowe's Hairpin, and into Portier for the second time, holding this thing in third gear to limit the understeer, and it's fair to say that things are working out for me rather well. As I almost understeer into the outside wall, but able to control it. And now it looks like I have got this one by the reins. So through the swimming pool section another time, and this very much looks as though it's going to be an easy win for me, again here at Monaco, because the player normally does have the advantage here over the AI. And there we go, easy win, and 29 points to boot. And the Fiat in the end wound up finishing 5th, as the Delta took home 2nd with the 166 in 3rd. I don't think everyone made it to the finish before the fade. I also chose this Alfa Romeo because, well, it was one of the cheapest choices I could choose from AR. But there we go. 2 races down, and this one I pretty much thought was going to be easy. But again, I did have to put on the upgrades to make sure that the problems I would have with this thing would be limited. Because, well, I'm smart like that. I'm not really that smart, but I'm at least smart enough. So, yeah. Okay, 1 race to go. I've beaten the Lancia Delta in both these attempts. Now let's move on to Sonoma. So we have 1 race to go now, and it takes place here at Sonoma, and where it is basically all Alfa Romeos for our final race. I'm convinced in saying we don't need the engine tuning on anymore, because we already have pretty much all the tuning we need. I don't think we're going to need the engine tuning anymore from what I can see. We pretty much have everything we need, so hopefully this should make us okay. Or if it doesn't, then I'll just have to refit it. But whatever. I am hopeful in saying this won't be too hard to pull off, because I was, I think, 9 seconds ahead of the Lancia Delta in the end at Monaco, so I kind of figured just to make this one more interesting, and because I already have the essential bits of tuning I need fitted to this thing already, I think we should be okay from what I can see. Because we have the weight reduction, and we also have the oh so important port polish and engine balancing. 2 things that I believe are helping this thing to no doubt churn away. Plus 75 points. If the previous 2 races have taught me anything, It's that I think this one is going to be pretty easy. Because we have no Lancia Delta in the field. As I get a ton of understeer on the corner exit. Because I noticed the front tyres were not wanting to get through the corner. And now through these right-handers, which makes up this hairpin. And now we go down into the S's. So, 0.4 of a second is the gap to the Alfa Romeo 166. I almost go off into the sand there. That sand trap would have been very nasty had I been caught out by it. And there goes the 166. And now I go straight up the inside and pass him for the race lead. And I think it's fair to say, at this time at least, we're doing pretty well, to say the least, here at Sonoma. As the other two go straight off at, I think that was either turn 3 or turn 4. I think that was probably turn 2, most likely. And now I already have a 4-second lead up front, so barring any major mistakes at this point, I think it's going to be pretty easy for me to pull this off, the way I see things. Because I won the first 2 races with relative ease, although I did have the engine tuning on this car for that just in case, which was probably what made it easier than it would have been had I not removed the engine tuning. But either way, getting through the S's, and 5 seconds is now the gap to my fellow Alfa Romeo GT, as he is now well clear of the 166. So heading now into the final hairpin turn, and I think encountering that was probably Bill Elliott's Dodge on that signpost there for the Dodge sponsorship. Anyways, I win. Oh yeah, the race itself used to be known as the Dodge Save Mart 350. That's ironically the race they host here at Sonoma, or used to be. Nowadays, well, it's sponsored by Toyota because, well, Dodge isn't really in NASCAR anymore. And doesn't sound like they have any plans for returning anytime soon. But, I don't know. Whenever it comes to OEMs in racing, there usually is a lot of weird things that go on. But anyway, there we go. 1-2 for the Alfa Romeo GT V6s. And then the 166 finished P3. And everyone else didn't make the flag, as it was the 156 who came home P4, then it was the GTV in P5, and at the back it was the Spider 3-litre V6 who finished in last. Now we get to collect our prize car, as I have scored over 100 points, well, over 120 A-Spec points from this event, and for winning this, we get another DTM legend, the Alfa Romeo 155 V6 Ti. I think I might just be using this thing at some point. because I have an idea of what I want to use this thing for. But anyway, that's what we get for winning La Festa Italiano. And now that is our 5th European event now complete. And I think we'll do the Classic Car League next in the European events. I think that seems like the best course of action to take, because it rewards less money than the Euro Hot Hatch League. I think it seemed like a logical choice. To me anyway, as we've now reached 36.3%, so another 0.5% of progress is gained, and our win ratio has moved up again by a little bit, as we've passed 1,030 miles, and we've now driven 43 cars. That's a lot. And here is our Alfa Romeo 155 V6 Ti from 1993. I'm also pretty sure it was the 155 that ironically won the British Touring Car Championship at about the same time as well, even though it wasn't quite as powerful as the DTM model. I'm pretty sure this car did also win the BTCC, if I'm not mistaken, model-wise. And believe it or not, the main driver was, I think, Gabriele Tarquini, who won the championship on both occasions, DTM and the BTCC, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, a very fitting prize car for a very fitting event. And next time we will be doing the Europe Classic Car League, coming in the next episode.